Hey, everybody, my name is Theo Fleury, and welcome to the Sean Newman podcast.
Welcome to the Sean Newman podcast. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Theo Fleury. So thank you, sir, for hopping on.
Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
Right off the top, I guess I'm curious on how you're doing. I listened to, I was just saying, I've listened to several episodes of you over the last little bit here as soon as I found out you were coming on. And it was closer to the start of COVID, but you mentioned it was one of the most difficult times in your sobriety was now. And so I'm curious, how are you doing today, and more specifically, I guess, in general over this time span?
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's no secret that I suffer from like almost debilitating depression and anxiety. And when COVID happened, or before COVID happened, I was on a plane every week going somewhere, speaking or helping people. And then all of a sudden it was like nothing. So I fell into about a month and a half depression. Couldn't get out of bed, could barely get up to go to the washroom, and was having probably 4 or 5 panic attacks a day, just because, of the uncertainty of what was happening, right? And then, the snow all melted. It started to get nice out. So I jumped on my pedal bike and I started riding my bike. And as soon as I did that, I started to feel better. But more importantly, I'm wired to win. Okay. And so I always thought that I could somehow defeat my mental illness. And what happened was I accepted it. For the first time, I actually accepted it and said, okay, this is what the rest of my life is going to look like. And instead of trying to beat it, let's just try to manage it. Right. And since I switched that mentality and way of thinking, I haven't had a problem since.
So do you have a routine then you're doing now? Every morning, getting up?
Yeah.
What do you do in the morning?
I think the biggest misconception with depression and anxiety is that, the best relief for that is to move. Like just move, like go for a walk, go for a ride, get in the car, drive to Starbucks, grab a coffee or whatever. You got to move. But if you sit in it, it just like completely overtakes you. Right. And so, when I get up in the morning, I meditate, light a smudge, do some prayer meditation. Then I get on my bike and go for a ride. And then, I've had some neck and back issues from my playing days. And so, I've been going to chiropractor, laser therapy, whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, my 2 boys both work. And so we meet at the golf course between 4 and 6 o'clock and we play 18 holes of golf every day. So, golf, I'm getting t-shirts made up that says golf is what I take for my anxiety and depression.
You mentioned moving to get out of it. Well, that's pretty much what nobody can do right now. That's exactly what happened. How many people are going through what you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's got to be an unbelievable amount.
Yeah, it is. Well, COVID-19 is the most traumatic event that's happened since World War II. Right.
100%.
And so, I've been spending my time over the last, since I got out of the depression, getting prepared, for the aftermath of COVID, because I was busy before. I'm going to be full out swamped when this is, all said and done.
Well, you already are full out swamped. You're doing podcast after podcast.
Yeah, but that's good because it gets me out of my head, gets me out of, that stinking thinking stuff, right? So,
well, some of the best therapy in the world is just talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And as soon as that was all taken away, everybody locked themselves indoors, and you lose that human factor of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how healthy you are. all you're being told in the media and everything is how bad it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know, they know that we're all fucked up, and they know that you know, that if they keep us in fear, then they keep us in line and they can control us, right? So, you know.
Who's they, Theo? I've heard you say that several times.
Well, you know who they is.
Well, when I said you're coming on, you have a crazy amount of Twitter followers. It's just like active. I've had people on that have millions of followers, but your followers are like engaged.
Oh yeah.
And when I brought you on, Lloyd Minster reached out to me, and the first thing they wanted me to ask about was 2005. And I'm sure you've had this brought up several times. Looking back on the Allen Cup with Horse Lake, what's your thoughts about it now? You know, it's 15 years later.
Yeah. Well, it was an amazing experience. You know, it's sort of because I was so done with hockey. Like I was, you know, I had a lot of resentment and anger and whatnot. And so, you know, going up to Horse Lake, I was back in the dressing room, which probably, you know, we all miss the most. And actually playing is, you know, that the dressing room has a certain amount of therapeutic healing, you know. And as soon as I got back in the dressing room, it all came back to me, and you know, I found the love that I had before, and you know, it wasn't at the same level, but you know, I had a bunch of buddies, you know, Steve Parsons was there, and you know, Gino and the Lakovic brothers, my cousin was on the team, and you know, so it was fun, and you know, unfortunately, it didn't turn out the way that we had all hoped that it would, but you know, the experience, you know, was incredible. You know, the people of Horse Lake were phenomenal, and you know, enjoyed my time there, and you know, I know what you're getting at, and you know, I think I've talked about this before, but you know, it was really disappointing to see how you know, the Aboriginal people were treated, and you know, that hurt a bit, you know, because I do have Aboriginal blood in me, and you know, I've been to 420 First Nations communities all over Canada now, speaking, and you know, those people have truly given me my life back, you know. I've met some incredible healers. I've met some incredible medicine men, you know, spiritual teachers, you name it. And you know, the reputation that they have is not warranted, you know?
Yeah. Well, anytime, well, when you play on a team that comes in and are the Broad Street Bullies of senior hockey. I remember that team was, you guys were tough. And when you had Theo Fleury leading the way, you were not known for being the quiet guy.
Yeah, no. Well, I always said if people in the stands disliked me, then I was doing my job.
What was the toughest building you ever went into as far as fanfare goes? You know, you played a lot of years in a lot of different leagues, and you know, there's just.
But you know what? I wouldn't say they were tough buildings. I just think they were. I looked at them as incredible challenges. You know, to stay focused and, you know, try to do what I do best. And that was, you know, score goals and make plays and whatnot. And, but, you know, in junior was Regina, Swift Current, you know, those were, like in Regina, I needed a police escort out of the rink every game. You know, the fans would be standing beside the bus wanting to, you know, kill me basically. You know, and then places like San Jose, you know, back in the day, I was hated there. You Chicago was another. The old Chicago Stadium was a tough building. The old Boston Garden was a tough building to play in, So even the old Odd in Buffalo, like if you weren't ready to play in those rinks, man, because they were so small, you get your head taken off pretty quick.
I had a listener reach out and he said, Jamie Graham says, ask about the time you put Vaseline on fan seats in Section 2 at the old Medicine Hat Arena when you were
Yeah. Mike Keane and I did that one night before a game. They had a section that used to sit behind the players bench, and they would absolutely just beak off the whole entire game. And so, we decided one night we were going to get back at them. So
you showed up early and put Vaseline on the chairs?
We Vaseline the whole section.
How were you just sitting on the bench, just like, can't wait?
Oh, we were killing ourselves laughing. Yeah, we were killing ourselves laughing.
Well, what happened? They sat down and they're just like, what the hell is this?
Oh, yeah. 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 What I remember, our backup goalie's name was Glenn Seymour, right?
Okay.
And so one night, the fans in Medicine Hat in Section 2, the guy goes, "Hey, Seymour, I got a cat at home named Seymour. When I get home, I'm going to kick it," he said. So, that's, or Kelly Buckberger. "Hey, Buckberger, what's a Buckberger made out of?" And the guy beside him, "Chicken." Just that kind of stupid stuff. But, that back in the day, man, that's what made junior hockey so great was, those old buildings and the fans were like right on top of you, and, you could hear them and you could go back and forth with them. And, like every time I used to score a goal in Regina, I used to machine gun the crowd and everything. They just go nuts. So
you love the interaction with the fans then, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, last time I checked, hockey is entertainment, right? So I'm an entertainer.
How, you're not a big guy, and you played in a time when hockey was mean. It wasn't rough. It was downright mean. How did you survive that?
I was really good with my stick, my first year in the Western League, I was 5'3", 125 pounds. That's what I played, And I remember one of the first times we went up to Prince Albert, and they had a big, mean, friggin' ugly team. And I remember the first shift of that game, I got hit by Dave Manson, and I thought I broke every single bone in my body. And I said to myself, that can never happen again. And so, I knew that, if they had to come through my stick or elbow or whatever, I became very crafty with my stick. And, and so I would play this, psychological game with guys out on the ice, because I knew that 75% of them were bluffers, and the 25% who weren't bluffers, I stayed away from them, Like, this is what I used to say to Bomber all the time. We'd line up, against each other in the face-off circle, and I'd say to Bomber, "Man, are you ever playing good tonight, man? You're really moving the puck, and, you're making that first pass." And he would look at me and like, "Really?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're playing great tonight," And then he wouldn't do anything, So it'd be that kind of, mentality, right?
Did you ever stop talking on the ice?
No. But, I'm a highly competitive guy, right? And I think that's probably the biggest reason why I was so successful is I competed at, a very high level, because I hated to lose. And so, I would line up against you at the face-off dot at the beginning of the game, and I'd look in your eyes and I'd smile. Why? Because I wanted to get a reaction. Because I was willing to die in order to win, and I needed to know if you were willing to do the same thing. And if you weren't, guess what? I can take you anywhere on the ice and do whatever I want with you, right? And the guys that competed at the same level as me, that's when it got fun, because now I gotta elevate my game to another level, you know. And most nights, you know, I'd have to play against the other team's shut down defense, right? So I played against guys like Chelios and Scott Stevens and Bookaboom and Smith and Edmonton, right? And so, you know, those guys were highly competitive guys. And so, you know, those guys actually made me better player
Who
because
is,
I had to compete at a higher level.
when you look back then, who is the one guy that sticks out that when you stepped on the ice against him, you're like, it better be go time because this guy takes no prisoners?
Yeah, it was Tikkanen in Edmonton. You know, and if you look at Tikkanen's career, you know, everywhere he went, he was that shutdown guy. You know, like Gretz hated him. You know, because he was that kind of guy. You know, and he was such a great player.
What would he do to you on ice that would just drive you nuts?
Well, no, he was good with his stick, and he could skate, and he had skill, and you know, so he could keep up. You know,
How
and
good?
so as a skilled guy, you know, you get frustrated when that guy's in your face all the time, right? You know, and you don't want to take penalties and, you know, that kind of stuff too. And you know, he's not a fighter, so you know he's not going to drop his gloves, right? So, you know, you just got to deal with it.
You know, you bring up the Battle of Alberta and Tikkanen. That was the heyday of the Battle of Alberta. Both teams exceptionally good.
Yeah.
And such a giant rivalry. I was too young to remember most of it, but you always
Yeah.
hear the lore of the stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
What moment in that series or across the Battle of Alberta, what moments stick out to you?
Well, I think, you know, those games were circled on the calendar, you know, before they were even played, you know. You looked forward to them. And you know, those are the games you want to play in. You know, as a professional athlete, those are the games that you want to play, because that's where you make a name for yourself, because you know it's going to be hard, you know it's going to be difficult, you know it's going to be violent, it's going to be, you know, crazy. And you know, you want to beat them, right? You know, that's, you want to win. And you know, like I said, those games were the funnest games to play in, because you knew, you know, when you were putting on your equipment, you weren't putting on pads, you were putting on a suit of armor, and you were going to war, you know, right? Like, that series in 1991 was like off the charts. Like, it was so violent and so brutal. Like, when we were slashing guys, we were trying to hit bone. That's what we were trying to do, you know? And they were trying to do the same to us as well, you know? And, yeah, that series was amazing to be a part of and play in.
Do you remember? I mean, Gretzky down the road for you as plays a big part in your life. Do you remember the first time you stepped on the ice against him and what your thoughts were?
Well, I was obviously in awe, right? But that quickly subsided, and you know, I knew I had a job to do, and that was to get in his kitchen and you know, make it difficult for him to, you know, do what he did best. And you know, we used to have a guy who was our assistant general manager. His name was Al McNeil, and Al was an old school, rough, tough defenseman back in the day, and you know, he became part of management. I remember him in the morning skates coming to me every time we played against LA and said, you know, you make it hard for that guy to play, and you do everything you can, get in his kitchen, and you know, don't be afraid to whack him and slash him and all that. And so if you ask Gretz today who his least favorite guy was to play against, he would say it was me, right? And you know, I think that left an impression on him. And then obviously in 2002, at probably the most difficult time in my life, you know, he picked me to, you know, be a part of, the Olympic team in 2002 in Salt Lake. And, I think at that point, everybody had written me off except for him, because he played against me and played with me and whatnot. And so, I have a lot of respect for him. And, not only is he a great hockey player, but I think more importantly, he's a even better human being. And that's what I respect the most about Wayne Gretzky.
Do you remember the call for the 2002 Olympics?
Yeah, we were in New York, and I think, was it, I don't know if we were getting ready for morning skate or actually getting ready to go on the ice and play a game. And my one of the PR guys from the Rangers said, "Hey, it's Gretz on the phone." And so I went into the can. I'm talking to Gretz on the phone, and he said, "Hey, you've been picked to represent Canada at 2002 Olympics." And I was just like, "Wow, thanks, man, and appreciate it. And let's go win the gold medal."
Have you talked to him about it since? I assume, and I can only assume, that when he brought that up around the round table, they're sitting there picking the team, and he brings up, "I want Theo Fleury."
Yeah.
I'm assuming he got a little bit of pushback.
Oh, yeah. Yep. He tells that story every time we're together. He tells that story to anybody who will listen to him tell the story. And he actually told it at his fantasy camp in front of all the guys. Can't remember when that was. I think it was like 2008. I was down there for his fantasy camp. And so we have sort of an interesting relationship. We don't talk to each other on the phone or anything, but when we do see each other at different events, he always makes a point of coming over and making sure I'm okay. So,
well, the 2002 Olympics, I think, for a lot of Canadians, hell, even a lot of Americans, sticks out. And the thing I always remember as a young guy was Gretzky's press conference, where he talks about you and the abuse the Canadians are taking.
Yeah.
And that kind of became a lightning rod for you guys. Do you remember, like, after that press conference came out and Grex just goes out and like lays it out to everybody, like, this is what's going on?
Right. Well, we learned a lot from the 98 Olympics. And so the biggest difference was that when Gretz took over the team, he took out all the distractions that were going to distract us from really just focusing on playing. And so, we were pretty sheltered, and we heard about the press conference, but I don't think we actually saw it. We heard about it. And, I don't know if that added any fuel to the fire, because if you look at the lineup,
Unbelievable.
I say, I played on the fourth line with Joe Nieuwendyk and Brendan Shanahan. That was the fourth line for Team Canada. So
not too shabby.
If you look up the three sets of stats, and that we were sort of considered, to be this kind of energy, momentum shifting kind of line, you probably laugh at yourself, because but yeah, that team was just, it was ridiculous,
Looking, all the different things you've won, the cup, the gold medals, was there, after you'd won one of them, was there ever a time you just sat in the dressing room and it was surreal and you just were like, wow?
I think every time you win at that level, there's a certain amount of reflection, but when you're young, you just want to get to the next winning opportunity, right? And so obviously now, that I've been retired for 16 years, I look back on those times and those moments, and, the one great thing about COVID was I was able to watch the whole entire Stanley Cup final on Sportsnet. And, there was things I, sort of didn't remember. So it was nice to be able to sort of reminisce and take a walk down memory lane, because, and what I noticed was, there was absolutely no room on the ice at all. Like if you wanted room, you had to create it yourself through, you know, physicality or speed or, you know, whatever it was. So yeah, it was interesting to watch it.
I know I've listened to you say before, and you maybe not hoarder is not the right word, but you keep a lot of your memorabilia.
Mm-hmm.
And over the gold medals, et cetera, is there one that you got like on the wall that you're most proud? Like that is it.
Well, I have I have three jerseys that I display prominently in my house. So it's the Stanley Cup jersey, 1991 Canada Cup, and the 2002 Olympic medal. And then I have my little Stanley Cup and my little Clarence Campbell bowl that you know people can see. Other than that, everything else is packed away for my kids. So,
Um, how about winning the cup then? You're you're in the minors, and then you come up and hop on. You know, I'm an Oilers fan, right?
yeah,
But that Flames team was ridiculous.
stacked. That was stacked. Well, think about it. I was the fourth line centerman on that team too, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, you know, when you're playing road hockey in Russell, Manitoba, and it's minus 50 and your eyelids are frozen shut, you know, you dream about playing in the NHL first and foremost, right? And then when you get to the NHL, then you start to dream about winning Stanley Cups. And so, you know, I was able to do that all in the same year, you know? And, what was interesting though was, you know, I won a World Junior, and then 6 months later, I was in Salt Lake City, which was the Flames minor league team. We won the Turner Cup that year, and then a year later, I won a Stanley Cup. So within 18 months, I had 3 rings, and I was like,
What's the big deal?
This is easy, right? And then, you know, I play 15 years in the NHL, and I don't get another sniff at the Stanley Cup, you know? So when people say that it's hard to win the 10, it's hard to win the 10, you know? A lot of things have to fall into place for, you know, for that to happen. So,
Was there a team after that then you thought maybe this could be the year again?
well, we should have won probably at least one more, maybe 2, you know, after the fact. But we couldn't get out of the first round of the playoffs. It was unbelievable. I think 4 game sevens in the first round, you know, and I think three or all 4 went into overtime. So
Unbelievable.
yeah,
That's the first round of playoffs. Any fan will tell you is the most exciting hockey in the world.
yeah, because everybody has a clean slate, right? And you know, it's all about momentum, you know. And if you lose the momentum, it's hard to get it back. It's
What do
hard to
you
get it.
What do you think of the 24 team playoff tournament happening in Edmonton and Toronto this year?
I think it's great. You know, if everybody can stay healthy and stay out of the COVID thing, I think, you know, it's sort of made for TV, you know, because you're not going to be able to have fans, you know. And I read something August 1st, there's going to be 71 live games being played. Hockey, basketball are all going to be on the same day. And there's going to be 71 games.
Holy Dinah.
So we're all going to be cross-eyed.
Going back to the 89 team, you got to play with a guy. I love his name. We even named our draft after him. It's Hawk and Lube.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
What was Hawk and Lube like?
One of the sickest players ever. He could stick handle in a phone booth on gravel. That's how good he was. You know, he the sweetest guy you'll ever meet. You know, funny guy. You know, but my best Hawk and Lube story is we were playing in the old Boston Garden that year we won the cup, and he held on to the puck for 1 minute and 10 seconds, and nobody could get him off the puck, and he finished it off by like sick move and scoring a goal. It was unbelievable.
Guy had sick hands and a better name.
Yeah. Hawk and Lube. Yeah. Great name.
Do you, with your size and how small you were back then, did any of the big guys in the room, like they must have been when you walked in the dressing room, been like, who is it? Is he our stick boy? Is that who this
Yeah.
is?
Pretty much. Yeah. Well, and that was the funniest thing about, watching that 89 Stanley Cup final. I'm 52 years old. I was 20 back then, and I was just like, oh my God, I looked like a baby back then, and yeah, it was interesting. But, I think that, um, so this is a great story. So, the Flames had a very veteran team, right? And so I came January 1st, and, I wasn't really accepted at the beginning. I was kind of like a, circus act, right? And so we played LA in Calgary, and we called up a guy from the minors, a guy named Kenny Sabrin. He was a defenseman. And so I ended up on the ice with Gretz and Ken Baumgartner and Jay Miller. Okay. So this young kid we called up from the minors absolutely like laid Gretz out in the corner. So then yard sale, gloves, helmet, sticks flying everywhere, and it's a line brawl. And so Timmy Hunter was one of my line mates, and he was on the ice. And so Jay Miller and Bomber were trying to get at him 2-on-1 him, right? So I'm like, I can't let that happen. So I jumped on Baumgartner's back, okay? And he basically went like this, picked me off like a little fucking mosquito, and he just fucking drilled me like right between the eyes and split my forehead wide open, right? So I'm fucking, wrestling with Baumgartner, and all of a sudden I get this fucking tap on my shoulder, and I look over and it's Gretz. And he's like, kid, we got to get you to the bench. You're fucking bleeding and shit. So this is how I think. So as Gretz is escorting me to the bench, I say to myself, should I fucking sucker Wayne Gretzky right now? So my common sense kicked in, and I said that would probably be a bad career move. So I didn't. And so I went back to the bench. I went to the dressing room. They sewed me up, and I came back and I scored 2 goals that night. And I was the first star of the game. I think that's exactly when my teammates accepted me, that that I was here to, to help them win a Stanley Cup. And after that, it was pretty good.
That's unreal. Can you imagine if you would have suckered Gretzky? Oh my
Oh
God.
man, yeah, I would have had the whole LA bench on me. They would have jumped over the fucking bench, and it would have been a bench clearing brawl, no question about it.
In your book, and I have to be forthright. I put it out on Twitter. I just read it about a week and a half ago. I am about 10 years after the fact, and it was from start to finish. That book is a hold on to holy shit level.
Yeah.
You got some like crazy stories about pain endurance that I find super fascinating, and I was hoping I could get you to talk about your first 50-goal season, because you do it on a bum knee.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were in LA playing against the Kings, and Tony Granato was a similar kind of player as I was. He was highly skilled and mouthy and lippy and whatever, and so we were getting killed. I think we lost the game like 11-4 in LA that afternoon. And right at the end of the game, I saw Granato coming up the ice, and I stuck my knee out, and we hit knee on knee. And I knew something was wrong, and so we got back to Calgary, and I was close to getting 50 goals. Like I think I had 47 at that time. And so we had a few days off, so I was able to get some rehab and some ice and whatever. And then we played Vancouver the next game, and the doctors were kind of like, I don't think, you should be playing or whatever. Right. So after the morning skate, I went to the doctor's office, and he basically put me through a whole bunch of exercises. Right. And I couldn't do any of them, but I fucking sucked it up and, whatever. And then that night I went out and scored my fifth. I scored a hat trick against Vancouver and scored my 50th goal with basically a second-degree tear of my MCL of my knee. And then the playoffs started right after that, and I was against Edmonton. And so basically I was on the Novocaine drip for 2 weeks, because not only did I have a bum knee, but I also had a separated shoulder at the same time. And so basically just go in and get frozen, before every game, and then go out and play. And then after the game, ice bags and ultrasound and all that. So
I think you wrote in the book something along the lines is the trainer knew you weren't 100%, so he made you do the duck walk around.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I was fucked. Like, you could have peeled me off the ceiling. That's how much pain I was in. So the cat on the fucking, that was me. So. But you know what? The hardest thing for a professional athlete to do is sit out, to watch your teammates sort of go to war, and, you're sitting in the stands and there's absolutely fuck all you can do, like that's the worst feeling you can have. And so, you played the majority of your career, with some sort of nagging injury, right? Like I played 2 full seasons with high ankle sprains. And I didn't tell the fucking coach or trainer or nothing. I just, they would tape my ankle up every practice, every game. And, but.
How about the night you were playing in Calgary, I believe, back in the WHL, when you get high sticked?
Yeah.
3 root canals later.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. I don't know. I don't know. Just one of those guys that's tough and had a high pain tolerance, But like I said, more importantly, I didn't want to sit out, I wanted to be out there with my teammates, and, so you sacrifice a lot. But now I'm paying for it, right? I'm 52 years old, and every morning I have a real tough time getting out of bed, and, takes me a good 45 minutes to warm up at the golf course now, and all that kind of stuff. So it's, I'm paying the price now for not taking care of myself injury wise during my career. That's for sure.
I had Chris Dingman on earlier this week, and he told me, he's like, you got to ask about one of the last games. You're with the Flames. You got a day off before you're playing LA. You're out golfing with a group of guys, and Castles dares you to go to Vegas.
No, it was Iggy.
Was it Iggy?
It was Iggy. Yeah. So we're in a 15 passenger van, like budget rent a van, right? And we just finished playing Pelican Hills, which is a sick golf course in Newport Beach in LA. And we're driving back to LAX where we were staying. And we're driving by the John Wayne Airport in Orange County. And Iggy's sitting in the back of the fucking, and we're all hammered, right? Because we're out of the playoffs. We have no chance. It's a day off, whatever. We have 2 games left, one in LA and one in San Jose. And Iggy fucking yells, "You don't have the balls to fucking take us all to Vegas." So I did a fucking 8-laner across the fucking freeway, pulled up to the front door. I bought, I think it was 11 plane tickets to Vegas, and we all got on the plane, went to Vegas the night before the game. Stayed up all night, got to the airport at fucking, I don't even know what time it was, like 8 a.m, jumped on a plane, came back just in time to get back for morning skate that morning. So crazy stuff.
You bring a whole new meaning to playing guilty. I mean, us senior guys talk about guilty, but that's on a whole new level.
Yeah, it definitely was. But, We always used to say, can't replace good times, man. Yeah.
I'm just keeping track of the time, Theo. We're closing in on 45 minutes. I just want to know, do I got 5 minutes with you left?
Yeah. You can go to the top of the hour if you want.
Okay, perfect. All right. I want to talk about coaches. You've had some very decorated coaches. You've had some very lackluster coaches. I had heard you'd read, I think it was in your book, you said something along the lines of coaching ain't hard, just it's people management, but people get it wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Looking back through your career, who was maybe one of the better coaches you had, and what did they help you with?
Well, my favorite guys were the sort of hard ass old school guys, because if you worked hard, they'd leave you alone. The guys I had the most difficult time were with the X's and O guys and guys that never really played the game, so they didn't really fully understand, And I'm not a video guy, right? That's not how my brain works. I'm wired for competition. And no matter what kind of shape I was in, if you threw a puck on the ice, I'd give you everything I had every single night. And so, I hated practice. I hated working out, but I just loved to play the game, right? And so with the X's and O's guys and the fitness guys, of course I'm going to butt heads with those guys because, I don't want to be there, right? I just want to show up for the games and I just want to play the games, right? And, towards the end of my career, towards my end of my time in Calgary, like we had a young team, like really young team. And so, we'd have like hour and a half practices. And I'm just like, this fucking sucks, right? Because what do I need to learn, right? But I knew that, we had a lot of young guys that needed the ice time and needed the reps and all of that. So, but I like Crispy, who was our coach when we won the Stanley Cup. Our practices were 35 minutes every day, and we did the same 5 drills every day for the whole entire year. And it never changed. And I loved that. It was awesome, And if you wanted to stay out after and do extra work or whatever, you could, But guys like Dave King and Pierre Paget and those kind of guys, they were exhausting.
So Crispy, having him as your first NHL coach was a godsend.
Well, I would say he was instrumental in helping me make it because he believed in me and gave me, the opportunity to do what I did. And, he lived with my mistakes early on in my career because, I was pretty raw. I came from junior where I had the puck all night long. Like I didn't have to play defense in junior. And then I get to the NHL level and I got to learn how to play without the puck. Right. But, as much as I didn't like Dave King made me a better player without the puck. And so I became this sort of all-rounded player, right? Where I, played the power play, I penalty killed, I was out in the last minute, I took important face-offs, all that kind of stuff. And it was his influence, that really taught me where to be positioned on the ice so that I'd be a way better defensive player. And because of that, I had the puck more, because I was in positions where I would get the puck in good positions, to transition up the ice. So, and I say at the end of the day, I learned something from each guy, that I carried with me, throughout my whole entire career. So, but I loved the old school guys like Brian Sutter and Ronnie Lowe and John Muckler and, those kind of guys were, they just wanted you to work hard. And that was easy for me, right?
Yep, show up and go to work.
Yep. Bring your lunch pail.
You signed your biggest deal going to the New York Rangers. You get to play on the fly line. I got a buddy who works with Mr. York in Wisconsin, Minnesota, one of the two. I can't remember now. But he was wondering what it was like playing on the fly line with those guys, with
It
the
was
Big E.
it was unbelievable. Yeah, we were on fire there for especially the Olympic year. Like December when they picked the team, like our line was probably the best line in hockey, you know. And all we had to do was get Big E the puck, and that was it.
Well, he was for a while there. He was the most dominant man in all of hockey.
Oh yeah, he's massive. Like he is massive, massive. His legs and his yeah. I'll tell you a great story. So 1991 Canada Cup, we're doing our fitness testing, and they had the grip test. So I get up there, I grab the grip, 40. Okay. Scott Stevens comes behind me, grabs it, 60. Okay. Eric Lindros is 18 years old, hasn't played a game in the NHL, grabs this grip thing, 80.
Unbelievable.
It's like ridiculous. And then in that tournament, like he absolutely was fucking laying guys out left, right, and center. It was like, who is this guy? It was unbelievable. And his stick, honestly, I could barely pick it. Like I could barely lift it off the ice to stick handle with it. That's how heavy it was and stiff. It was ridiculous. I used to take it in practice just to fucking make the guys laugh. It was hilarious. I couldn't even raise the puck with it. Yeah. Yeah, he's a freak of nature.
While in New York, one of the things that jumped out about, I mean, there was lots in your book, but I guess I never really thought about it until I read it. But you were in New York City when the Twin Towers were hit.
Yeah.
Remember that day?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting was when I was in Colorado, I was there when Columbine happened.
Well,
Yeah.
like those two, Columbine, absolutely. And
That's why I often refer to myself as the real life living Forrest Gump. Because I was in Columbine, and then I went to New York a year later, and 9/11 happened. So, we were 20 blocks away from the Twin Towers when it happened, right? And I was rooming with Sandy McCarthy that morning, and for some reason, we fell asleep with the TV on. And I woke up and I saw this plane fucking flying into the towers, and I was like, "Wow, what's this movie?" And then next thing you know, the reporter come on and saying, "Yeah, plane's just flown into the towers," and then the second plane came, and then because what happened was, for the first time ever in the history of the New York Rangers, we were going to have training camp at Madison Square Garden, and so all that happened. We all went down to Madison Square Garden. We actually did our fitness tests that day. And then I remember walking back to the hotel, and we had to walk through Times Square to get back to the hotel. And, there's usually 100,000 people there every day walking around Times Square. And it was completely empty and deserted. It was nuts. Can't remember what that Tom Cruise movie was, where they showed that scene when Times Square was empty. Well, that's what it felt like. It was crazy. And then they shut down all the bridges, so we couldn't get out of there. And then eventually we did, and then we ended up having the rest of our training camp at our practice facility in Rye. So it was bizarre. And then we went around and visited the different fire halls and police stations and whatever. It was surreal. It was surreal.
well, you look back on just my life, that is one of the moments that just sticks out. I was in school in grade like 11, and every class, the teacher would basically tell you to shut up, sit down, and watch, and they'd roll in a TV and you watched. That was it. We didn't do anything else.
Yeah. It's what's a crazy world we're living in right now, like where this is all gonna end up is you know, your guess is as good as mine, but I hope that, you know, common sense prevails here, and that, you know, we get back to some sort of semblance of what life was like before all this happened.
Well, probably which leads me into my next question, which is a lot of people are wondering if you're going to run for political office. You're a guy who on social media, a lot of people think exactly what you're saying is bang on. And well, once again, I don't know how many times I read it before I hopped on here. Like, is he going to run? Question one, is he going to run for political office? Have you ever had thoughts about that?
Well, you know what? I've been asked several times by the Conservative Party of Canada, and I've just said, you know, I think being in the mental health space, the addiction space, is probably where I'm supposed to be right now. You know, and but you know, I've always been a shit disturber, and you know, that's kind of, well, it's interesting because I talked to a girl from CBC the other day because of my "We Day" quote. And I told her, I said, I don't talk to CBC anymore. She's like, what are you talking about? I go, I don't do interviews for CBC anymore. She's like, why? Because I said, well, because you're a propaganda arm for the Liberal Party of Canada. I said, I'm conservative. And I said, you're probably going to take what I'm going to say and you're going to twist it around and you're going to, you know, whatever. And, you know, I said, I have my own TV station, radio station, newspaper right on my phone, because I have 112 followers on Twitter. I have another 70,000 on Facebook, you know, another 20,000 on Instagram, you know, another 20,000 on LinkedIn. So I said, if I want to get my message out there, I just have to log into my phone and, you know, say what I need to say.
So what do you think of the current government then? And I don't know if I want to go down this road. Actually, I know I do. I just don't know how much time we have to spend on it.
Well, we got time. Well, you know, it's just straight hypocrisy. Okay. You know, they tell us not to do something and then they go and do it, you know? And to me that, you know, that just doesn't sit well, you know? 3 ethics violations, blackface, you know, and he's still the prime minister of our country. So if a conservative or an NDP or a Bloc Quebecois guy did it, they would be forced out, you know, by this cancel culture, you know. And you know, that's not the Canada I grew up in, you know. You know, the West and the East is completely divided, you know. And that's all been brought on by Trudeau and the Liberals, you know?
And social media.
Yeah. And
social media loves to create a divide. They've divided.
Yeah.
We all know how social media, well, I think we all know how social media works. You follow something, you like something, it starts feeding you more of that, right? So if you like conservative stuff, they feed you. And you know, you talk about CBC cutting up what you say. Both sides do that. Honestly, Theo, it's such a hard thing. I think all of us are sitting in the back room talking about. We're like, I don't even know who do you turn to right now?
I know. Yeah, I agree. You know, like I grew up in Western Canada, okay? And, you know, one of the reasons why I was successful in my hockey career is because I wasn't afraid to work. Because I had ample examples of people who worked hard were successful. Like I grew up in a farming community in Manitoba, and I watched people get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and work till 10 o'clock at night. And they went on nice vacations. They drove nice cars. They had nice houses. You know, I grew up very poor. You know, I lived in a low rental house. And I said, you know, I don't want to live in Russell, Manitoba for the rest of my life. Like I want to do something. But I had that hard work instilled in me as a young person going, if I work hard, you know, there isn't anything I can accomplish. And the fact that we can't find work in Western Canada when it's the complete soul of every single person that lives in Western Canada. We just want to work and we can't. So, And then Easterners are saying we're whiners because we want to work. Like, how ridiculous is that?
Very.
You know what I mean? And then, they want to cancel all the pipelines, but they filled a tanker
And
full
went through
of
the
Alberta
Panama
crude
Canal.
and went 20,000 miles and took it to New Brunswick. Like, is that not stupid?
Well, I think all of us, specifically in Western Canada, I can't speak for the other side because
Yeah.
you've been to the Eastern Canada. There's a lot of great people across this
Yes,
entire
absolutely.
country. But
Yeah.
it hurts my brain. It just hurts it when you read the story about the ship going around by the Panama Canal and you're like,
Yeah.
why not just put the pipeline in? Why not
Yeah.
put people back to work on a project that'll make all the country benefit from it?
Yeah.
Save us expense on the one side, make us money on the other side. The money goes everywhere, helps everybody living in this entire country.
Yeah. Well, and then, Michael Moore, puts out this documentary that basically says every green technology needs fossil fuel in order to be green. What? You know what I mean? Like, and we were the third largest producer of, natural resources on the planet, and we just shut it down.
I don't know what to say.
Explain that to me.
Here's where I sit. Okay, I'm before we started talking. If you would have heard my name, you would have been like, "Who's that?" Right? And so I sit in Lloydminster. I go to work every day. I have my wife, my kids. I do a podcast on the side. I watch what's going on, and I go, "Man, if this will put me into full panic mode if I think about it too long." Because at the end of the day, we all have our spheres of influence.
Yeah.
Right. So yours, obviously, from your followers, is bigger, and I got a little following, so it's not like it's nothing, but it's small.
Mm-hmm.
And so I watch what's going on in the political landscape, and I'm just waiting. I'd love to sit here and go, I'm going to run for political office tomorrow and whatever. But the same thing would happen as what I just said, right? You go, who's running? And so I wait for somebody, and I think a lot of us are waiting for somebody just to grab a hold of the reins, hop in, and away you go. And honestly, the guy I always stare at is Brad Wall. I still am having a hard time wondering why he isn't running for it and winning it, because I think all the conservatives need, the popular vote showed us last vote, is if you had the right person, all of Canada's behind him. Right now, we're going, well, it's this person or this person. Nobody seems to know if we're going to have the right guy.
Yeah. Well,
or woman, for that matter.
The biggest problem with the conservatives is they're letting the media control their message. I've met Andrew Scheer. I think he's a wonderful guy. He's kind and all that stuff, but they run his show, and he hasn't pushed back once. You look at a guy like Trump down south, he doesn't let them control the narrative. He controls the narrative, right? When everybody's against him, and he's still, so he's able to get his message out there because he uses social media, and he has a very, very smart guy, that Pascal guy who's been running his social media. The guy's a genius.
So you think everything Trump says then is planned? Like, I mean, even the absurd things he says where everyone's like, what in the hell is he saying?
Absolutely. For sure. Because he knows the Democrats are going to go nuts. Crazy.
Well, this has been, I tell you what, I love.
I met Trump too. And when I played in New York, and I thought he was a really nice guy, super nice guy. Genuine, cared about me, and was personable. So, even Shaq said it. I've seen interviews with Shaq who said he's hung out with Trump all the time. He loves him. I love Shaq. He's no filter guy. He says whatever the fuck he wants to say. We need more people like that. Everybody's so afraid. The conservative people are so afraid of being called a racist that they don't fucking say a word.
Well,
So if
that's
you don't push back, they're gonna run your show. And I was silenced for so long with my abuse and my story of trauma, and it ate my fucking lunch. It's never gonna happen again. If I got something to say, I'm gonna say it. I don't give a shit what people think about me.
Well, and I think people like yourself, the reason why you're picking up followers left, right, and center is because that is
Yeah, because
disappearing
I'm their
fastly.
voice. I'm their voice. I'm their voice. And like I said, I don't care. I don't care. I want my country back.
I want just common sense back, right?
Yeah.
That is the country, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like I just want when you pick up the news article, you're like, that makes kind of sense.
Would you call yourself a racist?
Myself?
Yeah.
Certainly try not to be, but I don't know. I laugh all the time now. I'm like, I don't know. Like if I say anything,
just got in front of the country and said we're all a bunch of racists.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess to answer your question, no, I don't consider myself a racist. I try and be as fair. I think 99% of us.
Yeah.
And you've seen the 1%. You talked about it way back at the start of this. No matter where you go in this province, country, world, there's people with shitty views.
Yeah.
But majority of us want the best for everyone.
But I also know, because I'm in the psychology space, is that's learned behaviors, right? Those are learned behaviors. If you grew up with a racist, you're going to be a racist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I get the fact that yes, we need some diversity training and we need some of that stuff, but to call all of us racist is unfair and unwarranted. Yeah, there is a small percentage of people, but they've never been taught anything differently, right? So, it's messed up. It's just I don't know where this is all going to lead to, and eventually it'll come to a head. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Yeah. Like, are you going to get a vaccine?
Oh man,
right there it is.
Well, I don't like it. We were having this conversation the other day. It's like, if tomorrow they said the only way your kid could go to school is by having a vaccine, are you going to get your kids vaccinated? It's like, well, then it doesn't really feel like a choice. Then it feels like, here it is. You got to abide by this. You got to abide by what we say. And what's so lovely about all of North America is our freedom. We have freedom of choice, freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And, as time goes on, it just feels like a little more gets taken away.
Yeah.
And actually, I was talking with a friend earlier on about some of this. And the thing is in the very beginning, Theo, I was watching it all. I watched everything. I watched so much Justin Trudeau, my head hurt.
Yeah.
And I was stressed, and I think the entire country was stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I sometimes wonder if they knew that would happen. And then after a month or two, everybody would be like, okay, the world's not falling, the sky's not, like we're okay. And now what I hear is none of us are watching it. And now you hear the scandal after scandal after scandal. And you're like, man, now none of the country's watching this, and it's sliding all by.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You asked about a vaccine. I don't know what to say. It's interesting to talk about, because I don't know the parameters of it. Right now, you're saying if the government walked in and said you need to have this, otherwise you can't go to work, I'm fucking super sketched out. I think everybody would be.
Yeah. Well, I want to know what's in the vaccine, what type of chemicals are in the vaccine, what are the side effects of each and every one of these chemicals that I'm putting in my body. Is there a microchip in there as well? Right? I want to know.
You think they get a microchip in the vaccine?
Who knows? Who knows, right? When you got Bill Gates out there, you know, he's going to make, I don't know, 100 billion vaccinating the whole entire world. I don't know.
Sure makes
like what I tell people is, before you call me a conspiracy theorist, like, go do your research, because it's all out there. It's all out there.
But Theo, nobody likes going to do research.
No, I get it.
Everybody is likes easy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what happened. Oh yeah, Kim Kardashian flashed the mob, whatever it is, and they carry on with their day. Trudeau apologized, whoop-de-doo. I shouldn't say nobody. A small percentage of the people actually go do the research.
Yes.
And probably the best thing that's coming out of COVID is more people are doing the research.
Yeah.
The thing with the word conspiracy is conspiracy has a negative connotation. So as soon as you say the word conspiracy, right away everybody thinks loony. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the more that comes out about every last little thing, and we're talking politics and vaccines, but I mean, look at what came out about Epstein, the documentary. Like, fuck my life, hurts my head.
Yeah.
And that shows systematically how a guy with way too much money got away with horrendous shit for way too long, and people knew about it.
Well, who are the most successful businesses through COVID? Amazon, Walmart, right? So we're given, because money is power, and then when you have power, you can abuse people. It's a very simple formula.
So you're saying if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, probably is a duck.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I've kept you a few minutes long. Why don't we go?
I could talk politics all day long, every day. But, I never used to follow politics. And then as soon as Trump walked down the escalator, I started watching politics, and I became addicted to politics. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating how they do, how they influence people.
So where do you think this leads then?
Well, it's going to come to a head eventually. Has to. It always does, right? So, I don't know. The fact that Trudeau is 40 points and Conservatives are 22, if he calls an election, like, it's the end of Canada, I believe. As we know it, it's over. If he gets a majority, can you imagine what's going to happen? He has a minority, and look at the stuff he's doing.
Well, that's why people with your platform, and heck, even me, right? I hear so many sports shows in particular. I listen to a lot of sports, but a lot of people, I guess, just with platforms in general, don't want to talk about politics. And I think more and more, man, we all got to start paying attention. Otherwise, it's going to it's just going to pass, and it's going to be too late. And then we're going to be going, how the hell did that happen? Well, it feels like it's happening right now.
And that's what they're banking on, they're already trying to suppress information already, right? Anybody who has a different opinion of, other than liberal, you got to really search for the information, and if you don't, then you have only one side of the spectrum, one side of the picture, right? So, and I laugh at people, I laugh at liberals, because their playbook is, they insult you first, right? And then they'll just keep coming at you. And then at the end, they'll call you racist. That's their playbook. They don't really have any argument. They have no rebuttal for blackface. They have no rebuttal for all these ethnic violations. Nothing, It's hilarious. When we've become a banana republic, the The patients are running the asylum. Basically what it is, you know? So two of the stupidest people in Canada, the finance minister and the prime minister, are running this country. Zero leadership skills. I've played for some of the greatest leaders on the planet. They were all humble. They were all compassionate, caring, loving people. This guy is day by day. He runs seat of his pants. You know, if you think he cares about you, he doesn't. He only cares about himself.
Well, this has been very interesting. I'm honestly, I'm happy it came up. I can see how passionate you are about it, and I think a lot of us are behind closed doors where nobody can hear. We're all talking about it, but nobody. You stick your head up and you get attacked for talking about it.
And you know, if that's the case, we're going to lose. You know, if you're, you know, don't be afraid. You know, don't be afraid. Like I said, I was silenced for the majority of my life, and you know, 16 years ago, I had a fully loaded pistol in my mouth, ready to take my own life, because I stayed silent, because I stopped using my voice, or I didn't use my voice. You know, God gave us a voice for a reason, and that was to use it. And whether you're in the mental health space or addiction space or political, whatever it is, you know, like, you can't carry this shit around with you, because it eats your lunch, you know? And, you know, part of the reason why I'm so boisterous politically is, you know, I have a voice and I'm going to use it. And if you like it, great. If you don't, that's your prerogative too, you know? Conversation and rebuttal is part of life, you know? I know that 50% of the people that live on this planet don't like me, but I know that 50% do. So I'm going to hang out with the 50% that do like me, you know, and it's that simple, right?
I think I would argue that. I would say they make you feel like 50% of the people don't like you.
Right. Well, because, you know, unfortunately, you know, I've had to choose because they want us divided, right?
I think things like podcasting and alternative sources of information, you know, I always think of Joe Rogan. I listen to a lot of them. He's a smart guy, has very interesting people on. It's platforms like that get around the government being able to dictate what's talked about.
Because that's how you get power, is the will of the people, right? If you have the will of the people, and if they're scared to speak up, you become their voice, right? You become the voice for those people that are afraid to, you know, talk about their opinion, what they think is right or wrong. And so, you know, that's kind of how I see my role, is that, you know, I know that there's a lot of conservative people in Western Canada who are afraid to talk, you know. Like I said, I've been silenced my whole entire life. That's never going to happen again, you know?
I guess one of the, just changing the subject, it's something I've wanted to ask you since reading your book. It was in your first couple of chapters. It was very, very difficult to read. And I'm the guy reading it, not having to experience it. I know I've heard you say you want to talk about the solutions and not the problem. And talking about Graham James is like reliving the traumatic events.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would say, if people want to know about it, read the damn book, because, I mean, the first couple chapters are about as skin crawling as they can get. I was wondering if you had, you know, you go around and talk, or previous COVID, you go around and talk to people who've been through events such as that and other things. Specifically, athletes. I think of hockey. I traveled around and played a lot of hockey and lived in billet houses and that kind of thing. Is there advice you can give parents to ensure or help shield or whatever you think the word is so that a Graham James doesn't happen?
Well, I always say go with your gut. If you see something that makes you feel uncomfortable, then, you know, go with your gut, you know. These guys are master manipulators of the system, you know. The grooming process starts with the adults. It doesn't start with the kids. It starts with the adults. So these guys infiltrate themselves into kids' organizations first and foremost, right? Then they gain the trust of all of the people who make the decisions, right? Then once they have that power, then they start grooming the kids. And the last thing in the process of all of that is, you know, kids get molested. And it's a long, drawn out process.
So it
You
doesn't
know?
just happen overnight.
No. It's calculated, it's manipulated, it's all of that, you know. But, you know, for me, you know, I've been able to do lots of unpacking of all of this, right? And you know, I actually look at Graham James as a gift in my life now, because without that experience, you know, I'm not in this space, I'm not in this platform, because without the experience, you know, I'm not an expert, you know what I mean? And so, you know, the universe picked me because of the greater good and the bigger picture, right? You know? And so, you know, I look at it completely different. I don't look at it as a burden anymore. I don't look at it as, you know, I don't feel sorry for myself. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. You know, when I told my story is when my life changed completely, 180-degree turn, you know, and that I become this safe place for people to talk about, you know, what happened to them, you know, and, you know, that's the way I look at it, you know, and I've been given a second chance at life. You know, like I said, if I would have pulled the trigger, I wouldn't be here, but I didn't for a reason, right? Everything happens for a reason. You know, none of this was coincidence. And, you know, when I started to go down my spiritual journey, you know, these things were kept showing to me, you know, the humility, the surrender, you know, the understanding, making sense of it all, right? All of that. And you know, what I always tell people is if you're in pain, that's a sign from the universe that you have an opportunity to change your life, because the universe will keep putting lessons in front of us until we get them, right? And you know, when I stopped drinking and was able to think with a clear head, those lessons I could catch them, and I looked at them as learning opportunities and opportunities to change, you know, and yeah. So don't always look at things that happen to you as a burden. Look at them as, you know, preparation for the next phase of your life, or the next healing opportunity that's going to be presented to you. Because the universe does it, you know. And if you believe in something greater than yourself is running this show, you know, life gets easier, right? You know, like I used to live in drama all the time. I don't live in drama anymore, and people that bring drama into my life are gone, because I just want to have peace and joy and happiness and love and care and respect, and you know, all those things we learned growing up in Western Canada. That's the heart of who we are. You know, we respect people, we work hard, we give back, right? You know, that's the core of who we are, and that's being taken away from us. So yeah, of course we're going to be upset. Of course we're going to push back, right?
Yeah.
You know, so you know, so if you're listening to this, you're conservative, you know, it's time to fight back. It's time to use your voice. You know, don't be afraid. You know, racism is just a word. You know, if you're not acting it out, then you're not a racist. So when somebody calls you that, it's like water off a duck's back, right? You know, I know that I've been directly involved in raising over $100 million in charity for all kinds of different organizations. You know, that's not who I am. Who they're telling me I am and who I am is completely different. So I don't buy the propaganda. I don't buy into it. You know, I live in a free country, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it's super powerful what you talk about.
Yeah.
One other thing on the Graham James thing is I asked what parents can do. I had it was a very eye-opening experience. I had Ambrose Furcus come on here, and I don't expect you to know who that is. He's a kid from the area, and he talked about his billet dad trying to molest him, and the next day he called his parents, and it all came out, whatever. But he talked about it on the podcast, and tons of people had no idea. And it was the first time I'd ever, I think I've said it before. I played a lot of hockey, and I almost feel lucky now. I must have fallen in the right spots not to be put in any of those situations because.
Well, you had great parents, right?
Yeah.
You know, they prey on people like me, where my parents both struggled with addiction, and I was looking for attention, and I wasn't getting any attention, and they love broken homes, they love divorced parents, that kind of stuff, right? That's what they look.
And honestly, I think Ambrose, by all accounts, comes from a very good family. I think the thing that
the reason why is because he picked up the phone right away and said something's wrong.
Yeah,
right. There's a guy like me. I want to get to the NHL. I can't call my parents, and I knew if I would have told, first of all, end of my hockey career, because I'm a shit disturber, nobody would have believed me, right?
You think nobody would have believed you
back in that time? Because he was a Hockey News Man of the Year.
Yeah, no, it's fucked up. Think about that. Think about that for a second.
Who are you going to believe?
Here's where I struggle with, and I'm sure this has been brought up to you before. The Hockey Man of the Year. There had to have been a fucking unbelievable amount of people, grown-ups. I'm not talking kids, because kids probably too who got it. But grown-ups who went, hey, he's just kind of an odd duck. Like there had to
oh yeah.
So it's crazy to me that back then even nobody would say anything.
Yeah. Well, they knew. Well, the stories are endless, right? Look at all the stuff that's come out since Sheldon came out first. The Catholic Church has to talk about it every day. Jerry Sandusky.
Yeah.
Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like, and, it's a $150 billion industry. Child trafficking is $150 billion industry.
150. What?
Child trafficking is $150 billion industry. Proven fact. Google it.
$150 billion for child trafficking.
Yep. So people are buying kids to have sex with them.
Oh. Fuck, that's not going to let me sleep easy at night. Yeah. That's fucked up.
That's why you got to have that conversation with your kids. Make sure when they're on their cell phones that they're not doing shit that shouldn't, because that's where these guys hang out. That's where they hang out. 750,000 pedophiles online every second of every day.
What? 750,000
pedophiles online every day. All day long.
Oh,
So that documentary, Out of the Shadows,
yeah.
is real. 100% real.
So what would you say to a kid? What advice would you give to a kid that's listening to this and has either, the first grown up has tried? What advice do you give that person?
Well, tell an adult, like right away, or phone the police, or like they're out there. They're looking for messed up kids, and they're gonna shower them with attention and give them money and you name it. Right? They know the deal. They know how to do this. It's scary. It's scary stuff. Right?
Yeah. I'm just, I got three kids under 4. So 4 and a bit. He just turned 4.
Yep.
And it's something that weighs on my mind. Not that they're in a situation, but at some point, the statistics are saying at some point they're going to have somebody try or be around somebody who certainly wants to.
Well, here's another stat. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 5 boys will have some sort of unwanted sexual experience before the age of 18. So that's 1/4 of the whole entire population of the world that's going to have an experience such as mine.
So now I really am lucky, right? Like I mean,
Yeah.
fuck.
So start talking to your kids like now, tell them, talk about what healthy touch is, what unhealthy touch isn't. You know what I mean? And then tell them, you know what? You can come to me and tell me anything. I will never judge you. I will never, be mad. Nothing. Right? Because you got to build that trust in them because, this is the world that we live in.
Oh, shit.
Right? So anytime any of these allegations that come out about, sexual abuse, I know they're true because the stats don't lie. And I think that the stats are extremely, extremely conservative. I've been doing this for 11 years now. That 1 in 3, 1 in 5 stat, bullshit. As many boys get molested as little girls do. There is no distinction.
And yet you want to meet Graham James again? Or not meet him. You said you don't have any, like I read that.
It's not about me. I think it's because we don't understand the pedophile brain and how it works. I think it's a great learning opportunity so that, you're asking me these questions. What do I look for?
Yeah.
He's going to tell us.
Yeah.
He's going to tell us in an interview exactly what he's looking for.
Has that never been done?
No.
Nobody's ever sat down and done, they got the Criminal Minds, right? Where they go through the mind of a serial killer. This is one that pops to my brain. They've never done that for a pedophile?
Have you seen anything?
Guess I've never really searched for anything.
Right. So unless you search for it, you don't know. Right? So
I'm going to tell you, I read that chapter and I could have grabbed a baseball bat and strolled across to the other side of the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad was the same way, But, like I said, look at all the good that's come out of what happened to me, right?
Took a lot of fucking bad, though, Theo. Your book, I mean, man, at times I went, I can't believe you survived all that.
Yeah. But I did because there was a higher purpose, right? There was a higher purpose. And I just needed to find it. That's all. Right? And that's the thing, like, there's not enough of these conversations that happen. Like the conversation we're having right now, it doesn't happen. Because people are afraid to talk about, what happened to them. But you know what I tell people? You're in the majority, not the minority. If you suffer from mental illness, guess what? You're in the majority, not the minority. You know, if you have an addiction problem, you're definitely not in the majority or the minority, you know? And those of us who've experienced sexual abuse and mental health and addiction issues, guess what? We're the healers on this planet. I'm a healer. I help people heal. And if I didn't have the experience, I couldn't help anybody heal.
Well, put me on the opposite side of that coin. I listened to you talk about it, and I've never been put in a situation like that. In saying that, as time goes on and people hear Ambrose's episode, and, you know, I'm sure people will hear this episode, and I've heard you talk about it, about me too. I've had people stop me now in Lloyd, and some of them closer than I would have ever surmised, and say, well, and talk about what happened.
Yeah.
Blows my fucking brain away. Like, it's just like, I had no clue.
Like, I had a buddy in Moose Jaw who was involved with the team, and you know, we became friends, and you know, I sort of started exposing him to, you know, what I was doing. And as soon as people knew that him and I were hanging around, he said in Moose Jaw, it's been unbelievable how many people have come up to him and told him their story because he was associated with me. It's unbelievable. Because people just want to talk about this stuff, but you know, we haven't created a safe space in society to talk about this stuff. And so every day we fight stigma. Like, I fight stigma every day, you know?
Is it getting better then, though? Like,
yeah, it's way better than it was, but we still got 200 miles to go. Right? Because, you know, revealing what happened is the first step. There's, like, you know, you spend the rest of your life healing, right? That's why when I stand up on stage, I say to people, I'm in therapy for the rest of my life. And you know what people do? Like, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm going, I've experienced so much trauma in my life that this is for the rest of my life. And I'm completely okay with that. Because the more I put myself into therapeutic environments, the more I heal. The happier I get, the more peace I have, the calmer I am, all those things. But there's this stigma around therapy and treatment. Is there something wrong with me? So when you break your arm, you go to the hospital and they fix it. If you experience trauma, you're broken. You need to go fix it. But it's not as easy as just a bone healing. This is emotional healing, right? And emotional healing takes a long time to, you know.
And I think you've touched on it several times. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for yourself is just talking about it.
Yes.
Talking in a safe place, And there are not as many safe places as one would think, or at least you build it up in your brain that it's not as big as, or not as many as you think.
Because you're afraid to be judged.
Yeah. But you find those safe places where you can just say what's on your mind. And usually not usually, hopefully listeners or people have an individual or several that they can talk openly with without being judged, because it is the most freeing thing in the world.
Yeah. It is such a huge step, you know, and I've seen it live hundreds of thousands of times. I've seen it live where people come up to me and tell their story. And when they leave, their eyes are brighter. They have a little more bounce in their step. And they don't feel alone anymore, right? And as human beings, like, we weren't put on this earth to suffer in silence. We're put on this earth to be in relationship with each other and help each other get through the most difficult times in our life. And that's the stigma part, is, who am I going to tell? right? Where am I going to go? So, that's basically what I do every single day is try to create safe spaces and safe environments to people to get this shit off their chest, because if you don't, it's going to affect your kids.
Yeah.
And then your kids are going to be traumatized, and then they're going to grow up and traumatize their kids, and so on and so forth. And
a never-ending cycle. Never-ending cycle.
This is Adam and Eve ate the apple. That's trauma right there. So we're dealing with 2020 years of trauma. All these Antifa people out there and Black Lives Matter people that are causing shit. So that's trauma. You want to see trauma? That's trauma. That's their trauma being acted out. That's all that is. It's not about the Black Lives Matter. It's not about Antifa. It's all people that have been traumatized. And they've suppressed their anger and sadness their whole entire life. And now there's no consequences. So now they're all out acting out their anger and rage. That's exactly what's happened because nobody's ever dealt with their trauma. Think about that.
Nobody knows how to deal with their trauma.
Exactly, because there's no safe spaces.
I think
there's an underground of these people out there that are doing this work, but it's not mainstream. And when it becomes mainstream, then we're going to see an incredible awakening of healing all over the planet. But right now, it's all underground because everybody's afraid.
It's, I don't know. Social media is an absolutely amazing thing.
Yeah.
That gets used 99% of the time for the wrong thing.
Yep. Yep.
The video of the videos of good things happening go up the ranks, right? Like they get promoted.
Yeah.
But when the shit's the worst, like think about it. What is it? Karen's the trendy word name for any woman or any man who does something racist, right? So then they make it seem like that's on every corner block. Meanwhile, we're all going, I just come back to my town of Lloydminster. I know in the town of Lloyd and surrounding community, the farming community, there's such amazing people here. It's just amazing people.
Unbelievable. Well, that night we came up and did that thing for mental health. 600 people bought tickets for a mental health event. I stood on stage and went, holy fuck. Like, oh my God. Like I said, I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime.
I happily missed that, I guess. I was supposed to be there sitting, interviewing you guys, helping interview you guys.
Yeah.
But our third was born that day.
Well, there you go. That's awesome.
It wasn't meant to happen that time, but here we sit anyways.
Yeah. So, it's happening slowly but surely,
Well, it has to happen, right?
Yep.
Because
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I tell you what, let's go into the final segment. I feel like I've just watched a movie that's unnerved me, and me and the wife back in college had a tradition after we'd watch something that was a little bit unnerving, and you'd watch Family Guy and have a few chuckles, and then you could go about your day or your night a little better.
My go-to was the Nutty Professor.
Nutty Professor. Hey, that was good. Little Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. There's some funny shit in that.
We'll go to the Crewmaster Final Five. A shout out to Heath and Tracy McDonald. They've been huge supporters of the podcast. 5 questions, Theo.
Yeah.
We'll try and keep it light. I have to say this probably for the 10th time, or I'll say it 10 more times, is I really appreciate you coming on and talking about some stuff that really a lot of people are talking about behind closed doors. So thanks for that. But let's go into the Final Five. Who is the greatest player you ever faced on ice? and that comes from Mike Nealand off of Twitter.
It's got to be Gretz.
Has to be
sure.
Gretz?
Yeah, Mario's close, and I know both of them very, very well. I go to Mario's fantasy camp every year in Pittsburgh, and, he's one of my top 10 favorite human beings on the planet. But, two completely different body builds, two different ways they played the game. But, I just loved playing against Gretz, because you had to think like him, and that was hard to do, because he thought the game on a level that nobody's ever achieved. When you think about, there's some NBA guys who don't have 3,000 career points, and they get 2 and 3 points for every shot they take. He's got 3,000 points.
Yeah, but Theo, he played in a different era.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They were hooking and holding and grabbing and you name it,
You got a podcast. If you could have anyone you wanted, anyone, who would you want to come on to sit down and have a chat with?
Trudeau.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Think that'd ever happen? No way he'd sit
Never.
down across from him, would you?
No.
What would be your first question if Trudeau showed up, said, "Hey Theo, how's it going today?"
I would ask him about his trauma.
You think there's something there then?
There's no question. I grew up with a mom who was depressed their whole entire life. Caused me trauma. His mom, severe mental illness. Right? The thing about ego is eventually, like, if you lead with ego, eventually everybody resents you and hates your guts. But if you lead with compassion, humility, and empathy and all these things, people will follow you to the ends of the earth. And I used to be one of those ego guys, full of myself, fucking asshole. I was an asshole. Nobody followed me. And then I switched, became compassionate, became a listener, all those things. That's why I have such a great following, is people know what's truly in my heart. And I just want you to heal. That's it. That's all I want for people. And if I can be that conduit that connects the dots, man, that helps me heal. Right? Helps me heal. And it reminds me of where I once was. And that the possibility of change is achievable. Right? We have the most traumatized leaders in the history of our planet. Just because I know, because I've been in the psychology space for 15 years.
God, if that ever happens, I'll be the first one downloading it.
Be the most listened to podcast in the history of the planet.
What do you still got left on your bucket list?
I want to play in a senior tour event on the senior tour. Golf. Yep. I'm a scratch golfer, so.
How about this one?
I applied for an exemption at last year's Shaw Charity Classic. They turned me down, so fuckers.
I know you play music, and I think you're opening tomorrow night for a guy.
Yeah, I'm opening up for Gord Bamford. Yeah. So Gord, I met Gord at the Flames poker tournament. It's got to be over 10 years ago. And so I told him that I was doing music, and so he sort of encouraged me, helped me out. I sent him some songs and stuff, and then he started, inviting me to his big charity event he has in Red Deer every year, and then we just became really good buddies ever since. And so whenever he's around Calgary or whatever, he always asks me if I want to come up and sing a tune. So tomorrow, he's putting on a charity event for our foundation, the Breaking Free
That's awesome.
Foundation.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to open up the show tomorrow night. So with one of my original songs. So
who, if you could open for any band or group or musician, who would it be? Who would you want to walk out on stage and play right before?
Oh man. Jeez. Remember a guy named Buck Owens?
Buck Owens. No, I can't sit here and bullshit you that I do.
Okay. You know who Dwight Yoakam is?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Dwight Yoakam was heavily influenced by Buck Owens.
Oh, it looks like I know who I'm listening to in the truck after this is done.
Yeah, and so I grew up listening to Buck Owens because my dad and my uncle sang all these Buck Owens tunes, and I friggin' loved it. And go on YouTube and Google Buck Owens "Made in Japan" is my favorite song of all time because my uncle used to sing it all the time, and I just love the song. And so yeah, it would be unbelievable. Buck is dead now, but you know, that's why I grew up listening to Johnny Cash,
Legend.
Those old hard school partying dudes, like Willie and Waylon and all those guys. So yeah.
Final question for you. In the book Going to Nagano, you guys get to take, is it true you get to take the Rolling Stones plane?
Yeah.
What the hell was the Rolling Stones plane like?
Massive. It was massive. And it was funny, they had a big bedroom in the plane, right, on the top level.
Okay.
So that's where we did all of our meetings, our power play, penalty killing, line meetings. Yeah, it was all up there. So yeah.
How the hell did that go?
And then the whole plane was all first class seats, so it was ridiculous. Yeah.
Who had the hookup of Rolling Stones plane?
Who knows? Probably Gretz. I'm thinking Gretz.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I gotta say, man, this has been a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate you coming on here. I think at some point we're gonna have to sit down and do this again. But regardless, if it doesn't happen, I really do appreciate you hopping on this time and spending. And we talked about 45 minutes. It's been a hell of a lot longer than that.
Yeah. Well, I'm very passionate about what I do. Whether that's mental health, addictions, trauma, politics, whatever it is, I'm very passionate about, helping people heal and I've dedicated the rest of my life to doing that. So,
well, thank you very much.
I know what it's like. I know what it's like to, be in pain, not physical pain, but emotional pain. And, I know what it's like. And I know that there's so many people out there that, are that way. And so, if I can help in any way, I'm more than happy to do it.
Final one for you now that I'm staring at it. What's Benny's skate sharpening? I've been wondering this the entire podcast. Your hat.
So there's a guy that helps out at Mario's fantasy camp.
Okay.
Who does all the skate sharpening, and his name is Benny.
Well, shout out to Benny.
And I love this. I love the old school
trucker hat.
Yeah. So Benny's skate sharpening brings up a lot of different conversations.
Cool. Well, Thanks again, Theo. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. I appreciate you asking me to do this. And hi to everybody in Lloydminster.
Hey, folks. Thanks again for joining us today. If you just stumble on the show and like what you hear, please click subscribe. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, a new guest will be sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you find your podcast fix. Until next time.